Would you rather have rest of season Derrick Henry, Breece Hall, or Joe Mixon? Henry, the RB1 on the season, but Mixon actually out-edges him in points per game at 22.6 for the top running back. Breece Hall is down at 16.7 points per game, RB11. Over the past 4 weeks, Mixon still the RB1 in points per game, Henry RB11, Breece RB13. Eric, how do you differentiate these top-tier running backs rest of season?
I don't. I think they are essentially the same player down the stretch run, right? If I had to kind of find a tier break, it would be between a 1 and 1A of Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon, and then Breece Hall as kind of the 1B or the 2, so to speak. A lot of this has to do with just the general dumpster fire that the New York Football Jets are. We don't really know what the rest of their intention's going to be like for the rest of the season, how much their team is going to be kind of looking to turn the page on 2024, how much they're going to see what they have in Allen back there, right? Like there are more question marks looming with Breece Hall, however phenomenal a player he might be. Honestly, of these two, my homerism really wants me to pick Joe Mixon here, right?
I think that's fair.
I mean, I was thinking about this watching the game last night, right? Like we all want to talk about the measly free agent contract that Derrick Henry went out and was acquired for. Joe Mixon was acquired for pennies as well, granted through a trade market. But I mean, these are two of arguably the best free agent values that I can recall at the position in quite some time. Joe Mixon's down week, so to speak, was week 10 against Detroit, where he was bottled up as a rusher, but still got 90 scrimmage yards overall. I mean, he's just out there putting up triple digits every single week. And, I think his role as a pass catcher is probably what's going to have me edge out Derrick Henry and go with Joe Mixon here.
Yeah. Nope, I'm 100% on board because the thing with Derrick Henry is if he doesn't get a touchdown in a game, like that's not a great game necessarily. He also has the toughest remaining strength of schedule for running backs. Joe Mixon, 13th toughest, and Breece Hall, 8th easiest. But I agree with you, despite Mixon having a more mid-schedule rest of season. Like, let's be honest, we missed the mark as analysts on this show, as a community, as a whole, I think. And I think part of it has been the injuries to the Texans as well. But regardless, like this offense is moving through Joe Mixon. It is not moving through CJ Stroud. It's not moving through the pass game right now. He is the catalyst for them, who is keeping them in games, helping them win games. And I think we all missed the mark. I know at least I did. Steve, where do you land on these running backs?
Well, coming into the season, I had Breece Hall as my RB1, right? And then it's really hard to imagine, but the high point for the Jets over the last 2 years was the first snap of the season last year when whenever Aaron Rodgers popped his Achilles because they were actually winning football games.
Running out of the tunnel, like, the American flag.
No. I'm talking about the moment he blew out his Achilles. That's the high point because it's all yeah. That's when they have
beat the Bills that week.
Yeah, like they were
the
better.
Biggest win of the Aaron Rodgers era is that 2023 week 1 upset of the Bills where he played 4 snaps.
Yeah, I would argue it was the comeback win a couple weeks ago, but go ahead.
Aaron Rodgers has been nothing short of a disaster, franchise killing talent, right? And he's killed Breece Hall. So Breece Hall's out for me. It's Joe Mixon all the way. I'm going to keep this brief. It's Joe Mixon. That offense is running through him. He is the Joe Mixon that we all thought he'd be when he came out of college from Oklahoma. He's getting the pass catching work. He's getting the rushing work. He's getting the workload that we knew he could handle. DeMeco Ryans, this man can put together an offense, and I am really impressed with the Houston Texans altogether. Even though CJ Stroud has taken a step back in terms of production, they have found a running game that was almost non-existent last year, and Joe Mixon has shown every single week to be a weapon that is very formidable. So I'm taking Joe Mixon, and I'm very happy about it.
I will say, to wrap up kind of the discussion on Breece Hall, I know it hasn't felt great this year. He is still just averaging a little less than 1 point less points per game in PPR formats than he was last season. It's just he's not the dominant. Like last year was a really down year for running backs outside of CMC. Honestly, like you had Breece Hall, you had a couple guys who stepped up down the stretch, but we have some really consistent scores at the running back position this year between Henry, between Joe Mixon, between Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, and Jahmyr Gibbs.
A really weird thing has happened all of a sudden in the NFL is that the committee running back has gone away, right? Like we've seen it happen where it was really tracking toward pure committees, and now teams have gone away from it, and now it's back to the bell cow. It's like
You're
teams have
seeing,
realized
yeah,
that
yeah.
that's the way to go.
You're,
Like find me a team that's successful that doesn't have a bell cow running back. You almost can't.
yeah, it is interesting for sure. And I think from fantasy perspective too, Steve, on that mark is that the running backs have really been the more valuable players this year than receivers for a most part. Like you could have got a guy like JSN late in a late round or a George Pickens in the mid round who are really
Well,
carrying you.
because of the committee coming up, right? Running backs took a hit in value. So all of a sudden
Right.
you were getting the Derrick Henrys,
Right.
the Joe Mixons, these late, like they were falling 1, 2, 3 rounds later because you're like, it's going to be a committee. I'm not going to take a guy who's only going to get 12 to 15 touches. And now they're back to 25 touches and the market will correct itself. So next year wide receiver will be more valuable.
Yeah.